Welcome to Thinner Peace and Menopause and Beyond. This is Dr. Deb Butler, Master Life and Weight Coach, and as always, your coach. Today is episode number 200. Stay tuned. Hi, everybody, all my dear friends, you guys. This is episode number 200. I can hardly believe it. And I've been thinking for a while, like what I want to put on episode number 200. And I started thinking, and the first thing that comes to me is that I have so much gratitude to you because I know a lot of you have been listening for all 200 episodes. I'm so grateful. And I know that there's some of you that have listened to even each of these podcasts even more than once. And for that, I'm so grateful. So I was thinking about, what do I want to tell you that I haven't told you already in this 200th episode? And one of the other things that occurred to me was my gratitude towards iTunes. Because you realize that this does not cost me anything to put this information out to you, and it doesn't cost you anything to listen to it. And I think that is amazing. So my hat's off to iTunes and to Apple for even allowing all of this to happen. It is just amazing. Then I was thinking about, well, what have I not told you that I want to tell you today? And this is what I came up with. I was trying to figure out what was going on 3 years ago when I first started this episode and what has changed and what's different. So I went back and I listened to my first episode, and I have to tell you, what I found out was that my first episode, it was amazing. That what I talked about in my very first episode has not changed in all 200 episodes. My philosophy and my message is exactly the same. And what I'm most grateful about is that when I started that podcast 3 years ago, I was really scared. And I think the thing that I was most afraid of is what you would think of me. You know, would you think I'm an idiot? Would you think that this is crazy information? Would you write me bad letters? You know, what if nobody listens? And I had so many of those thoughts for so long that it took me months to get one podcast out. And I'm really being frank with you about that's what I think about 200 episodes ago is how afraid I was. And yet what I believed and what got me to do even the first episode was that I believed that I had life-changing information and that if I could change just one person's life, that it would be worth it for me to put that on there. And so that is what I did with that first episode is I just started with Thinner Peace and Menopause and what is it? And when I go back and I listen to that episode, I really think that some of the things that I said back then, I want to take notes on now and then repeat it. And you know what? That's a really good feeling when I go back and listen to this is that there is not a lot that's changed. But I'll tell you some of the things that have changed is that I have traveled all over the world and done podcasts from all over the world and have talked to you. I lived in Belize for 15 or 18 months and did all of my podcasts from there. And I did all my Facebook lives from there about all of my adventures. And that changed me so much when I did Belize. And I know that I did so many podcasts about that because it was like, oh my God, I'm doing something that's so uncomfortable, but I'm going to do it anyway. And I talked to you all about going through that discomfort and coming out on the other end of how amazing it was. And doing my first podcast was so similar to that. So when I sit here today on my 200th episode, this is what I know for sure. What I thought 3 years ago is true, that I have life-changing information. And what is different today than 200 episodes ago was that nobody had heard it and nobody knew. And now I have changed through this podcast so many people's lives through this information. I didn't know it then. I had a feeling I didn't know. But now, between my clients and everybody that writes reviews, what I thought was true was true. I had life-changing information. The other thing that's a little bit different from my first podcast is that in the beginning, I had my husband, Michael, introducing me. And he still does all of my outros, when I'm through with my podcast that he recorded a while back, but he did all of my intros live. And I think when I go back and listen to it, it just warms my heart because he was coming from his heart when he was introducing me. And the only reason that we really stopped doing it is that it took so much time on his end to have to make one every single time I did a podcast. But I didn't know that then. So when he did it, he just came from his heart. So what I decided to do for this 200th episode is to go back for you and play my very first episode. And I just want you to listen to it. I want you to listen to my husband introducing me because it warms my heart because he was coming from my heart and basically telling you how much he loved me and how much respect he had for me and why it would be a really good thing for you to listen to me. I love that. I just love going back and listening to it. And when you hear me, I'm really telling you from my heart what I wanted you to know, but I was nervous. And I want to see if you can hear how different my podcasts sound now because I feel so much more confident than I did then. But I knew in my heart when I did that first episode, I knew that the only reason that I was doing it was because I wanted to affect other people's lives, that I wanted them to know that how they manage their minds is how they create results in their life. Doesn't really just matter about weight. I know my philosophy was on weight, but as you know from listening to all of the clients over the years talk, it's so much more than weight. It's life-changing because you learn how to manage your mind. So what I want you to do today is to sit back and listen to my first episode 3 years ago, where I used to do it in a different part of my room in my house. I don't even do it in the same place. And the feeling that I have when I come on is different. But my message and my philosophy and my intention has never wavered. The only thing that's different now is that I will never stop doing these podcasts until they wheel me off because I know I've got something really good to share. So I want you to sit back, relax, and listen to my first episode and see if there aren't some nuggets in there for you, like I found for me when I listened again. So enjoy it, and I'll see you for number 201. Thank you all so much for listening, for replaying this, for sharing, for reviewing, and for changing your lives. I appreciate it. Enjoy the podcast.
Hi, I'm Dr. Michael Butler, and I am the husband of Dr. Deborah Butler, and I've known her since high school. One of the fascinating things about Deborah was that she used to think differently than anybody that I knew. I was in high school and I wanted to see the world, and she says, no, see yourself from the inside. Well, she's still doing that after decades, letting people see themselves from the inside and helping them lose weight. Ladies and gentlemen, my wife, Dr. Deb.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Thinner Peace in Menopause. I'm Dr. Deb Butler, and this is episode number 1. From here on out, I'm not going to keep saying I'm Dr. Deb Butler. I'm just going to say, hi, this is Dr. Deb, because this is the way I want you to know me, and I want it to be personal. Today, what I'd like to start out with is the very, very beginning of how this whole thing works and how I got into it, because I think it's going to make a difference if you realize that it took me a long time to figure out how to keep my weight at the same number. It's earth-shattering, really, because I spent 40 years never at the same weight. I was either going up or I was going down. So it's nice to get on the scale and weigh the same most of the time. And how I did that is what all of these podcasts are about. And what I want to tell you right from the start is what it's not about. Okay. So I am not, even though I know a lot about nutrition and I've dealt with people's bodies for a long time, this is not about telling you the latest and greatest foods or the latest and greatest diets or what I think is best for your body. It is not about that. And the reason it's not about that is because I think you know all of that stuff already. If you're anything like I was, I knew every nutritional fact and every caloric fact and every point fact about every food on this planet. That did not stop me from gaining 25 to 30 pounds over and over and over again for, 10 to 15 times. And really, I equate that to losing at least 250 pounds in my lifetime. So I don't know exactly what your issue is, but I'm guessing that you're not at the weight you want to be. I'm guessing that you're in the state of menopause, entering menopause, leaving menopause, but somewhere around that, and you're sick to death of this merry-go-round. That's what I'm guessing. And if you are, then I know that you're just like I was, and I know that the information that I have to give to you will be really helpful. Before I get into all the different tools that I use to teach people how to maintain a balanced weight, I want to talk a little bit about the basics, because if you don't have the basics, there's no way I can teach you anything else. And this is what I mean by the basics. The basic connection to your body. And guess what that is? The basic connection. The basic connection is, drum roll please, do you eat when you're hungry and stop when you're full? That's the basic connection. It's the most innate. It's been with you from the day you were born. And somehow, I think, in the midst of messing around with what someone outside of you has told you when to eat and what to eat, you have lost that basic connection. And so this is what this podcast is all about, learning to reconnect to that. Now, how do we do that? So what I did is I wrote an article about this, and it's what I'm going to talk about today and read about to you in just a little bit to see if it helps you understand what that really means. I think I'm going to name this podcast number 1. I'm naming it, What Are You Really Hungry For? And hint, it's not in the refrigerator. So, what are you really hungry for? That's such a great question. And the hint that I give you is that it's really not in the refrigerator. And I think that somehow we had some kind of belief that it was in the refrigerator, but it's not. So starting with the basics, and the basic premise is this: you have to learn to trust yourself. And I know some of you will say, well, I do trust myself. And maybe you do in some areas, but I believe that most of my clients, and I'm believing you too, you don't trust yourself around eating. And what I believe that means is that you lost the connection, that you don't know what your body is telling you anymore, and you don't trust that because you've lost that connection. So how do we do that? Well, if you're going through menopause and you have never trusted yourself with eating, then I will tell you this right now, if you don't already know it, menopause does not make it easier. However, if you're going through menopause and you have had that basic connection to your body, then menopause has a lot to teach us. I'm guessing that most of you are in the category of not being connected and not knowing and not trusting. We have to start with that before we can figure out how to fix our bodies in menopause. So if it all starts with learning to eat when you're hungry and stop when you're full, then we always start with the simple action of eating. Why? Because we do it so often. And we do it with so little thought that we're actually checking in to what's going on with our bodies. Remember, our emotions live in our bodies too. Not just the physical sensations of hunger, but also the physical sensations of emotions live in our bodies too. So whenever we sit down to eat, we have an opportunity to check in emotionally and physically. So I love to use eating as the most natural way to do this. And I'm betting that you're listening to this, that you sit down and eat every single day, which means to me, every single day you can learn something about yourself, which is where we are going to start learning about you. Now, I will tell you that most of my clients, they don't trust themselves when it comes to feeding themselves. And we know that this is their basic instinct. I'll also tell you that most of my clients don't think they know when they're hungry and they don't know how to stop when they're full. I also was in the same boat for many, many years. I believed I did not know how to do this. And I did believe that for me, Weight Watchers did. And so I was a lifetime Weight Watcher member for 30 years in the hopes that I could have an outside control to keep my weight down. Now, there's nothing wrong with Weight Watchers if you use it and it works. For me, I used it as a way to lose the same 25 pounds over and over and over again, get down to my goal weight for one day, go back up, go back to Weight Watchers, go back down. You know the drill. That's what I did. That wasn't working for me anymore when I hit menopause. It did not work anymore because my body wasn't working the same and I wasn't losing weight the same. And losing weight to me was what it was all about, not the connection to my body, not knowing when I was hungry and knowing when to stop when I was full. All I thought was the most important thing was, how many points do I get? Did I stay within the point system that day? And if that equals losing weight, I'm all in. 30 years of that. I will also tell you that food does not jump into your mouth. For instance, cookies, they don't fly and they cannot force your mouth open. This has to sound ludicrous and a little funny when I say this to you, but I can't tell you how many women I talk to who say they don't know how the cookies got in their mouth. If I tell you that, you think, how could they not know? Or you're thinking to yourself, I know what you're talking about. We are not paying attention. We are not being conscious. We are not in our own bodies when we eat food. And we must be in our own bodies when we're eating food to know what the heck is going on and to know this basic connection that I'm talking to you about. Most of my clients and myself too believe, and I believed, that when food was so delicious that they can't stop themselves and I couldn't stop myself from eating too much, even though I wasn't hungry and neither are they. However, if I was on Weight Watchers and I was on a point system, I would allow myself the points of eating and I could stop when my points were over. It's so interesting. I could stop when the outside source told me to stop, but I didn't think I could stop when my inside source told me to stop. I didn't even know what it was. And I don't think my clients do too. So of course, I weighed more than I wanted to, and most of my clients do too. What a freaking coincidence. I will tell you that this is not about telling you the newest and greatest food discoveries that'll help you lose weight faster than ever. There's a million books out there and pills and chills and all kinds of things to help you with that. That is not what this is about, as I've told you. This is just about the basic concept of eating and that reconnection of that most basic instinct. So learning this basic instinct and practicing it over and over again until your brain rewires itself and reconnects back to the body in the way it was always intended. And this is the beauty about neuroplasticity, is that we know the brain can change. So if you're doing it one way right now and you think you don't know when you're hungry and when you're full, it's only because your brain has been trained to do something different. So we can retrain it. Now, the reason I know you know how to do this is because my bet is that you help your kids and your grandkids all the time. You make sure they eat and you make sure they get sleep. Why? because you don't want to be around them otherwise. You know what I mean? It is not fun. So you can see how important it is that they eat and that they sleep. But we're really talking about eating right now, but sleeping is the same type of instinct. And we can see what happens when they don't eat when they're hungry and stop when they're full. And so we make sure that they do. But with you, you're tough. You just run through your life thinking you don't need what is basic to your kids. So interesting, isn't it? You would do it for your kids in a heartbeat, but you don't need it. But you're wrong, and it's only because you forgot. I want to help you remember by starting with this connection of eating. You will just do for you what you've always done for your kids, which means you're not learning something new. You're just doing it for yourself. You're going to pay attention to your basic body needs before you get uncomfortable or before your body starts screaming. And if it were your kids, you would do it before they started screaming and throwing tantrums. You don't want to get to that point, so you feed them before that. That's what you're going to do for you. And this way, you are then following the natural rhythm of your body. So how do you relearn how to do what you once did naturally? I'm repeating myself, but I have to. You learn to start eating when you're hungry and stop when you're full. And what gets in the way of that most natural action is what this is all about. And I know it sounds so easy. And for a 4-year-old, it is. But for a 50-year-old who has had years of disconnecting, not so easy. So this is where we're going to start. We're going to learn to tune into your body every time you put something in your mouth. This will be both fascinating and horrifying. But you will learn about the most important person in your whole life, you. You will get to know you the way you know your kids or your grandkids. And you're going to care that much about you as you do about your kids. What a concept. But that's how simple it is. And the truth is that is exactly what you haven't been doing. Paying attention to you. Being conscious when you sit down to eat and finding out what's going on inside of you. Each podcast, I will be introducing a new tool or concept on how to start doing what I've been talking about today and how to strengthen this connection and how to connect to this instinct on a regular basis. Because just think about it really. If from here on out, all you ever did was eat when you're hungry and stop when you're full, even if you didn't pay attention to what you were eating. Now just stay with me for a minute. I almost guarantee you would weigh what you're supposed to weigh. I know this sounds so crazy, but I know that it's true. Naturally thin people, and I don't mean naturally healthy people, I mean naturally thin people eat when they're hungry and stop when they're full. That's it. Now, I think a naturally healthy thin person is very conscious about what they eat. But actually just keeping your body weight at its natural weight is just a matter of eating when you're hungry and stopping when you're full. So when we tune in next week, the first tool that I'm going to talk about is a hunger scale. And it's not going to be like anything that you've ever heard or seen before. And it has never been talked about in the way I will talk about it and teach it to you. And it will add to your homework that I'm going to give you today, which is going to be very simple because everything that I ask you to do is going to be so simple because really it is that simple. So what I want you to do for next week, the only thing I want you to do is every time you put something in your mouth, I just want you to ask yourself, am I hungry? That's it. And when you finish eating every single time, I just want you to ask yourself, am I full? That's it. Next week, we'll get into much more detail about this. But for now, all I want you to do is to start tuning in to your body on a regular basis. This is called becoming conscious. This is called a brain-body connection. This is what we were all born with, and you have it. And we are going to use food as the way to begin this connection that is so natural and so necessary. So, I hope you've gotten something out of this today, and I can't wait to hear about what you have to tell me about just checking in with your body every time you eat. So please feel free to email me, Dr. Deb at drdebbutler.com, and tell me, oh, Dr. Deb, this was so easy to do. Or, oh, Dr. Deb, the hardest thing I ever did, I kept forgetting. You'll be surprised. I can't wait to see what happens. But it's the beginning of becoming conscious of your own body. I'll talk to you next week.
To get a free copy of Dr. Deb's companion workbook with all the tools, homeworks, and discussions that she uses in her podcast with all of her private clients, please go to drdebbutler.com/change. This will make it even easier to follow along with her in future broadcasts.